essentially political asylum.
But it is a complete coup because these people are not elected. They now have control of data. They have control of money. They have control of like the purse strings. He's just sitting on Twitter, just unilaterally chatting to his right-wing fans, going, "What should I cancel next? What should I stop payments to?" Sorry, who the are you?
This is not an actual work to a broken system. It is a morbid symptom of its decline and an accelerant.
I want to take it one step further, make it even darker.
Oh, great.
I think even if people were to suffer the consequences, nothing would change because you know what? We have social media today, which can literally make up, down, black, white, hot, cold.
Oh my God, stop.
I'm Mehdi Hassan.
Beeping at me.
Jones.
I don't even know what window is open.
Too outspoken. Owen, good to see you.
Great to see you. Well, it looks like you've already, we're 2 weeks in. Let's be honest. We were in the brace position.
Yeah.
But it looks like you've come crawling back, claiming essentially political asylum.
We are in London.
Given how bleak
we
things
are
have
in
got.
London.
Sorry
Owen
to
and
be
I are
clear.
in the UK. And have I fled the US for the UK?
Well, it seems that way. Do you think, are they going to let you back in? I don't know. How does it work?
I'm a US citizen, but apparently that doesn't mean anything anymore.
No, I mean, especially...
Apparently you can now deport US criminals, US citizen criminals to foreign countries, according to Trump. That's
Well,
the
also,
latest-
Elon Musk
latest
now
one.
has all your data, doesn't he?
That
that
is
true?
worrying. That is
Yeah.
worrying. We're meeting shortly after I left the US, and it was a crazy last weekend, for those of you who are not following, in the UK and abroad. We basically had a coup in the United States, where
Just
an
a coup,
unelected billionaire and a bunch of kids who were not old enough to rent a car went into various government departments and just took them over, like physically. You know, we talk about like data, they're in your data. No, physically went in, past security, threatened the security officials with men with guns, with US Marshals, went into USAID, went into the Treasury Department, took physical control of the richest, most powerful government in the world.
And Democratic Congress people then waltzed in, tried to, elected
They've
politicians.
since tried to, but, you know, they don't have any power
No.
right now. And yeah, it's very hard to get people worked up, Owen, about stuff like this, because here I am in the UK. I was just having some dinner with some friends last night, trying to explain to them this story, which I am very hard to get people worked up about. They've taken control of the Treasury payment system.
It's
right?
not even on people's radar, though. I think that's the problem.
But also, when we talk about authoritarianism, you and I talked about this before the election. I've been screaming about this for years. The second Trump term will be an authoritarian Trump term. There will be, you know, neo-fascism. People are going to try and take over the government, end democracy. But people don't visualize the end of democracy as the Tesla dude and a bunch of kids taking over the Treasury direct payment system. That's just not how they visualize it. But it is a complete coup because these people are not elected. They now have control of data. They have control of money. They have control of like the purse strings. He's just sitting on Twitter, just unilaterally chatting to his right-wing fans, going, "What should I cancel next? What should I stop payments to?" Sorry, who the fuck are you?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because people's image of democracy dying is basically, I don't know, it's like a Latin American putsch, isn't it? It's tanks on the street. It's
Guy
the
in a balcony.
Yeah, the presidential palace getting bombed a bit.
yeah.
And then, you know, the Generalissimo doing a photo shoot with his arms crossed, wearing sunglasses, flanked by some other generals. That's the gist, isn't it?
Yeah.
But, you know, if we look at other... I mean, I think Russia's quite a good example. In Russia, they could go, well, we've got 6 political parties represented in our Duma. We've got 20 registered political parties in the country.
Vladimir Putin stands an election.
See, we've got, and you know, there are more people at the moment being arrested for political reasons than any time since Joseph Stalin. So I think we can all agree that's not a democracy. Hungary is the playbook for these people. I think, I mean, not just Hungary. I think they look at, they're picking and choosing. But Hungary is an example of, you know, they had a political party, Fidesz. It's Orban, not dude. His guy who runs it used to call himself a liberal. He used to be vice chair of the Liberal International, don't you know? And then it radicalized in power. And what it did is it didn't put, you know, people, you know, firing squads, shooting people, 3 people in prison. It just got rid of democracy by attrition behind closed doors.
Erosion.
Exactly. And you get sort of what we call democratic culture. I mean, look, you know, I've got a critique, you know, democracy, capitalism. Under capitalism, the wealthy have all, you know, huge amounts of power. There was a study a decade ago about the US being an oligarchy,
Yeah, it
not
was
a
a
democracy.
Princeton study, yeah.
Exactly. But there's always caveats. But there's this democratic culture, and that has just gone. That has just been completely eroded. Democratic norms, how a democracy functions, what is, you know, the opposition's legitimate. And what they did in Hungary, as well as, you know, supporters of Orban buying up newspapers, for example, so it wasn't by diktat, they didn't take over newspapers, they just got friendly businessmen to do it for them, is the opposition were portrayed as stooges of foreign powers, of George Soros, who was the, you know, this anti-Semitic trope, the puppet master. And
On Soros, just very funny. There was a very good tweet this week from Jane Coaston of the Times, who said basically it wasn't that people were opposed to the imaginary George Soros running everything. It's just they wanted a George Soros of their own.
just their
Elon
own.
Musk is what they thought Soros was.
Well, I mean, that's it. It's on steroids. I mean, it's not. Projection doesn't even give it.
It's
justice.
Jealousy.
Yeah, I know. It's like,
Jealousy of something that doesn't exist. So in Hungary, for example, they created this idea of Soros the boogeyman.
yeah, and what they did then is but they just kept pushing an open door.
Yeah.
Because the European Union, which Hungary is a member of, it does all this bluster and rhetoric. But Orban just shrugged it all off. And what they did is they escalated it. So, for example, they introduced, I can't remember, it's called Defence of National Sovereignty Act or something like that, which then investigates NGOs and media organisations for having foreign funding, and then uses that to, either you can, massive fines to bankrupt them or even lock them up.
Yeah.
And I think you can just see what is going to happen in the US, or what is happening in the US.
I mean, they've gone after USAID, specifically the aid department, because the argument being that they fund all these things at home and abroad. When the members of Congress that you mentioned turned up, Jim McGovern, Ilhan Omar and others turned up outside to protest this week, Musk tweeted the video and said, these corrupt politicians are here because they get money from USAID. Well, they don't, obviously. They vote to fund USAID. And then there's this argument that USAID funds foreign criminals and Marxist elements and anti-American groups.
Where's my USAID, Dosh?
Where is it?
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
We have to
I've
check
obviously-
they'll be checking all the accounts. But this is the kind of insanity, and it is that, as you say, the playbook is Hungary. Trump doesn't exist in a vacuum. I've been trying to explain this to people for a long time, right? He is sui generis as a person. There's no one like Donald Trump. Viktor Orban is not Donald Trump.
No.
Narendra Modi is not Donald Trump. President Erdogan of Turkey is not Donald Trump. Vladimir Putin is not Donald Trump. As people, right? He is very unique, weird individual, narcissistic, insecure, ignorant, etc. I could go all day. But the phenomenon of Trumpism and what he's pushing as a playbook, as a governing playbook, as an operating money, as you say, does exist abroad, isn't just an American phenomenon. It is in India, it is in Turkey, it is in Russia, it is in Hungary.
It was Bolsonaro as well. It's the
Also Brazil, to an extent, Milei in Argentina. This is all over the place. And the Orban one in particular they love because he's the kind of white Christian guy who, as you say, pretends to be a Democrat, so still can be called elected, but is doing exactly what they want in terms of controlling universities, going after LGBTQ communities, going after Muslim migrants, and cracking down on the media. It's interesting what you mentioned about the media, because if you look at Musk, and I know you've also written about Mark Zuckerberg as well recently in The Guardian. I saw your piece on Orban and Zuckerberg. These people have not had the Trump FBI or secret police go into their buildings and say, hey, you better bow the knee to us. They've just done it, the anticipatory obedience. They've bowed the knee and they've sucked up to him. And of course, Musk is a donor and a member of the government essentially now. So that's his takeover of the media. It didn't require, not a shot fired, right? And it's what they did in India. There's no independent media in the mainstream media left in India. Even NDTV, which was the last great bastion of TV journalism in India, was taken over by a billionaire ally of Modi. In Turkey, many of the newspapers taken over by rich friends of Erdogan. In Hungary, all the billionaires took over. So yeah, the playbook is there. We'd be blind if we didn't.
Well, yeah, I mean, because social media is where so many Americans get their news. 30% of Americans Facebook
I can't
alone.
link the shit back. I couldn't
Well, there we go,
fucking
exactly.
get in
So
because of a
it-
Twitch
but, I mean, you can see-
authenticator app to
Mark
fucking
Zuckerberg's
stream
right,
to
just-
Twitch
you-
on
you
this.
say
Now I
that,
can't
but
do
then
this.
In Donald Trump's recent book, he
The
says that
fucking
Mark
chat
Zuckerberg
doesn't show
intervened
up. I
again
can't
as
even
he's
see it
politically in the
at all
election,
now.
but
It's
he will
just
spend
fucking
the rest
gone,
of
and I
his
can't
life
log
in
into
jail.
the
Now, if
account
we were
because it's
talking
telling me the
about
fucking
Russia,
email and password is
and
wrong,
it
even
was
though
a
I
media
fucking
mogul
have
who
tried all our
threatened that way
fucking
and then bound the way
passwords.
accordingly. We wouldn't hesitate in calling that out for what it is. And I think what you can see, I mean, look, it's a multi-pronged offensive, isn't it? I mean, look at Jeff Bezos. The Washington Post pulled its endorsement of Kamala Harris. He's now done this ridiculous documentary, massive for Melania.
Yeah, he's paid 40 million.
40 million.
And he turned up at the inauguration, of course, to sit in a better seat than much of Trump's cabinet.
and then gave £1 million.
So when you look at that coterie of billionaires who are controlling the media and information system, it is Hungary on steroids, India on steroids, Turkey on steroids, Russia on steroids.
Well, it's
there's never been anything like it, right? These are the most influential human beings in the history of the planet in terms of the Mark Zuckerberg has more control over what we see, hear, watch, or understand than any human being in history. I hate to give him that compliment, but he is one of the most influential men to ever have walked planet Earth.
And you get,
and he's fallen in line behind Donald Trump.
And it's a multi-pronged offensive, isn't it? Because you get actually the threat of something legal happening, maybe an investigation to tax. They don't know. That Mark Zuckerberg clearly thought that was a risk.
Yeah.
He thought something was going to happen.
But also with Zuckerberg, it was an excuse for him to say and do what he
of course. I mean, tech bro. This is the thing. There's this idea of the tech bros being this liberal bastion, when actually incipient fascism and tech bros are definitely not mutually
They also
exclusive.
think they're the masters of the universe. So another guy who says he is one and empowers them to be one, it's great useful. Interesting you mentioned Hungary. Hungary didn't have a dollar billionaire until 2014 when one of Orban's allies became a billionaire. He's now the richest man in the country. I think he's worth 3.2 billion. And guess how he got a lot of his money? Government contracts.
Yeah.
Elon Musk, a man who gets billions from government contracts, and his company just went up in value since the election, I believe $200 billion. So the guy spent around $200 billion plus on funding the Republicans and Trump. They win, and his net worth goes up over $200 billion already. Not a bad deal.
And it's interesting.
Not a bad deal.
Because it's right-wing populism is about the people versus the elite, whilst then just nakedly encapsulating crony gangster capitalism in its most naked, shameless form possible.
As someone who has written extensively about the working class, right, you have in the UK and abroad, I know. How do you deal with that? I know in the US there's a very thing about the American dream and looking up to the rich guy and say, I can be that person, and the fetishization of wealth and billionaires. Globally, though, and in the UK and the US, how do we deal with the fact that, quote unquote, working class voters have no problem voting for parties that are plutocratic?
Well, I mean, I think some